Just after 9 o'clock, I have Dr. Aaron Chapa with Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center here in studio. If you're watching on social media, thank you so much. Go ahead and share this out. Let me know what you got going on today. I'm going to kick this on the FM, and we are going to have some fun. Here we go. Good morning. This is KHEA. It's Kickstart. My name is Gardy. I have a guest and friend in studio. I'm going to let him introduce himself and then share everything that he has going on in the world. And I know there's a lot that Dr. Aaron Chapa has going on. Whenever you've been in business as long as he has and has helped as many people as he has and is continuing to do, there's always some good news to share. Dr. Chapa, how you doing today?
Dude, Gardy, what an introduction. That makes me excited. Yes, we have definitely are thankful. We are grateful for the amount of people that we've been able to help over the years and serve. And, you know, I was sitting in a seminar this past weekend, and it was a virtual seminar, I hate to say. I'm definitely ready for a live event. And but I'm thankful for education, you know, and we are at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center thankful for the opportunity to re-educate what we get from other people around the country. And, you know, it was a great program around supporting, inflammation in the nervous system, in the brain, how to deal with, some of the long haulers syndrome that people are dealing with in chronic immune disorders, dealing with COVID or other viral pathogens that attack us, or even bacterial challenges that people are dealing with and why the body breaks down. And, you know, on that note of education for us, as we get filled up, we want to turn that around and fill up our patients, and we want to give back to the community. And so every month we have always committed to doing classes around different topics. This month we're going to be covering thyroid, and that happens to be tonight. So tonight I want to invite you personally, if you have never been to one of our events, if you've been to our events, we always have different topics. Tonight's topic is on thyroid health, and the thyroid is your metabolic diesel engine. It is going to be the ins and outs of how to just work with thyroid conditions. You, your friends, your family, your loved ones, somebody in your inner circle, outer circle is dealing with thyroid challenges, and we just want to invite you to a class tonight to understand the inner workings of the thyroid more better, as well as some testing that you can do to understand where the thyroid is in an assessment tool, and what we offer as therapies to help support endocrine dysfunction. And when the endocrine system, your hormonal system, your thyroid diesel engine is not performing at your best, you might be dealing with weight issues, or you might be dealing with hair falling out or skin challenges, or just feeling a little bit depressed or a little bit weird palpitations and sensations in your heart that you're not familiar with or comfortable with. And it could be from your thyroid. And we want to share with you, is it the thyroid, or is it the thyroid being bullied by something else? And what is that something else? And we're going to talk about that tonight too. So at 6:30 p.m. at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we invite you to come out and be a part of what we're doing to educate our community on how to live better, be better, and stay better. Living Well is a firm believer that all life starts and stops at the cellular level, and nutrition, that means you get to choose the nutrition you put in, can make all the difference. And so we just encourage you to be a part of that. Call us at 281-554-8600 and come hang out with us tonight, 6:30 p.m. at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center.
Quick question about that, about the thyroid. If somebody was having issues with the thyroid, is that something they would automatically know, or are there people out there that are having thyroid issues and they have no idea?
Well, so a lot of times it comes on as this underlying, I'm gaining weight, and they think initially I just need to lay off the alcohol, or I need to, stop eating the sugar, and they kind of go to the I know what I need to do phase. But then they start making changes and things don't improve. And then they start finding themselves a little bit more dragging in the morning. They can't get out of bed. Their normal patterns of life that they were doing seems to have caught up to them. And some people call that the case of the suddenlies. They call it, I turned 30. Some people say I turned 40. They can almost tell you when that happened. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So something shifted. And so they start just replaying, okay, I've been making these changes, I've been doing these things, and I still feel like garbage, and I just need to, do an assessment. The challenge is most people that go in for standard blood work, they don't run a full panel on the thyroid and evaluate the they don't really run a full panel anyway. One of the biggest complaints that I personally have with, modern Western medicine approaches is that we have endocrinology that only focuses on endocrine issues. But what about the liver? What is its play? going on? Why aren't we evaluating the liver when we evaluate endocrine system? Or why aren't we looking at digestion and food and intake? I was sitting in this seminar myself, and I'm listening to people talk about all the complexities of the immune system and the brain intricacies with the immune system. But the underlying message that I got is what I always get. All life starts and stops at the cellular level. We bypass the simple and really addressing food, because most people think they're eating the right thing and they're not. They're still eating inflammatory foods. We had a lady that we took off of, a food allergy called, wheat, gluten, tortillas, pita bread, chips even that have gluten laced in it, oatmeals. And we had to take her off this stuff. And, and I guess we weren't, clear enough, because she felt like pita bread was still on her menu, and she felt like some of these, gluten products were still on her menu, and she couldn't.
Is that because of the marketing? Because it seems like it's a healthier option, right? It's like
that's right.
Healthier options, pita marketing, and makes sense to me.
And I think that's a part of it. I mean, most food that people call healthy today is healthy only because of great marketing, designed marketing. I was just YouTube marketing strategies around food, and you will find some of the coolest, eye-opening videos of how they're hoodwinking you and tricking you into buying into their food source. I mean, there are hundreds and millions of dollars spent on marketing a food to you so that you'll buy more of it. And and then not only that, the food itself is chemically altered in order to enhance your taste buds and eliminate the law of diminishing returns, so that you return back to that food that ever seems to give you that satisfaction in your mouth. It's like Pop Rocks. Remember Pop Rocks back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
You throw those in your mouth, and your mouth is like sensitized, like with all these different experiences, and you're like a party in your mouth,
Yeah.
Well, if food can do that, they can, basically create a dopamine hit, and the dopamine is the addictive neurohormone that brings you back to that fun, excitement, I need this sensation. And, so food is a really, really big conversation that we're having more and more. We're doing it with our MacroFix program. Our MacroFix program is basically set up to help people see the rules of food. So like we have rules on the road. We know we're supposed to drive on this side of the road. We're supposed to follow these speed limit signs, and we're abide by, these traffic signs. And if we don't, there potentially is a trouble that might be lurking on the side of the road, in the form of law enforcement or a ticket or a crash. And so we abide by the rules in order to protect ourselves and our motor vehicles. We have rules that we can apply to food so that people stay on the road, and the road is towards good health. And it's your life, your health, your choice. You get to choose, and 80-90% of the time, it is just that. It's your choices that have led you into the conundrum that you're in, and we at Living Well want to help you sidestep those pitfalls and those potholes and get you around the traffic jams of health and get you back in the game. And so we look, bringing back this full circle to the blood issue, is we run a blood panel in our office that encompasses the whole matrix of the body. We look at inflammation systemically, which means throughout. We look at the thyroid, not just the thyroid stimulating hormone, but we look at the autoimmune factors that might be playing. We look at the production so we can see, are we getting good feedback loops between the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the thyroid. We're not just assessing, the thyroid itself. We want to look at all factors. We look at adrenal activity. We look at liver activity, digestive activity, stomach acid production. When we look at blood work from a functional medicine perspective, we go back to the analogy. Gardy, let me ask you a quick question. And I'll ask all of you also, what part of the watch tells time?
It's all of it.
All of it, right? There's no one part that you can take out of the watch and get it to continue to work.
Right.
And so the body's the same way. We're so hyper-focused neurologically on the brain or cardiovascularly on the heart or digestively on the digestive tract, and we forget that there's other pieces of the human experience that play into every one of those other systems. It's called synergy, and we've got to get synergistic in our approach and getting everybody to sing off the same health sheet of music so that you are singing in harmony and everybody can see your radiance. Doesn't that sound lovely?
Mm-hmm. This sounds good.
Yeah. I like how you brought the sound back into our sheet of music.
Yeah. Especially when you're putting work in and you feel good. You want everybody to see that.
Yeah, well, sitting in this seminar, they used a really cool word, and I wasn't familiar with it. Maybe some of you have heard it. It's called senescence, immune senescence. You ever heard of this? And I'm like, whoa.
No, I haven't.
I asked my wife, I said, what is senescence? And she goes, I don't know. So we had to Google it,
Yeah.
and so Google Translate basically gave us a state of becoming old, senescence. So it's SENESCENCE, a state of becoming old. And it made me think about one of my mentors. He would talk about we're all in a life cycle, and we are all born, we develop, right? We develop rapidly in the beginning, and we actually are always developing, but we get to this pinnacle point where we start experiencing like a peak, and then it starts to kind of decline, and there's a state of declination, a declining, that state of becoming old, the senescence space. And one of my mentors calls it the pauses of life. And the pauses of life could be menopause, it could be andropause. So menopause would be like female hormone dysregulation, slowing down, shifting into what we call the second puberty.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking, no, I didn't like the first puberty, I don't want to go through another puberty. Well,
Right.
you do, and it just means a transition. Right? So the hormonal structure changes, and they produce less in the form of fertility hormones, and they are more what we call a stable, path where they don't have the ups and downs and swings in their hormonal chain. But they've been doing this hormonal swinging for so long that their system has a hard time transitioning into that next phase. And men go through the same thing called andropause. I call it menopause, or people call it, a midlife crisis, for the guys. But it also happens to your electrical system, electropause, cardiovascular pause, where you start seeing like transitions in cardiovascular activity. And it happens in the elastic tissue of your connective tissue, which is why things seem to kind of sag as you get older. This senescence idea is a kind of a cool word I've been chewing on. And your immune system, your digestive system, your brain system all goes through a life cycle. And so what are you doing to regenerate your immune life cycle? And so I thought we would just kind of talk a little bit about, some of the things that we do to enhance the immunity. We're going into the fall. Supposedly it's going to be chilly. Did you hear about this on Wednesday?
I did.
That's exciting. My wife is excited. People are excited. The transitions of life. We like transitions of life in seasons, but we don't really like transitions of life in our body because they seem like they're out of our control. And I think I really want to emphasize the idea that you are in more control than you realize. Simply, for example, you can increase thymic activity, thymic being T regulator cells, your immune cells, just by doing a month worth of Thymex in our office that stimulates the thymus, or thymus PMG that feeds into the thymus gland that produces your T cells. And you can upregulate. You can take sesame seed oil, and you could mix these two together and stimulate the bone marrow to produce more T regulator cells and upregulate your immune system. And so you could do what we call a sequential bolstering, a strengthening activity for the next 3 to 4 months, or even just the next month. You can pick and choose and integrate technology of food and nutrition into your lifestyle, into your food choices, your water choices, the things we talk about so regularly on the show, and in order to make your life better. Because your immune system is it's your army. Would you want to starve your army, Gardy?
No.
I don't. I mean, I want my army to be prepped and ready for whatever might come down the pike, because we don't know how your body's going to respond. We can't predict how it's going to respond to this pathogen or this pathogen. But many people know. They went out of the country, they came back, and they never were the same. Or they went into the hospital, they had this procedure done, and they never were the same. Mm-hmm. Or they had this traumatic experience, and they never were the same. Everybody has a story. They heard a story like that, and so with the immune system, the best investment you'll make into it is to continually work on it a little bit. And so we roll different programs through the body. You could simply take green tea and upregulate T regulator cells in your body. Green tea, you could, simple, drink green tea, right? That's not that hard. And if you don't like green tea, we have supplements that can upregulate your T regulator cells that use green tea polyphenols to help digestive immunity and mucous membrane activity, as well as turn on these T regulator cells to produce more immune upregulation. And I think that's a really cool idea. Another great key that everybody's talking about, but we're not always I think we take it for granted, vitamin D. You can go outside and get plenty of vitamin D, except in the wintertime when the clouds are out maybe more, or maybe the sun's farther away from the earth, or it's too cold to go out in shorts and tank tops and sandals. And so you've got to make sure that we're integrating some of these tools and techniques into your lifestyle. And so I had a conversation with a guy yesterday who his doctor was telling him, well, you need to be careful of taking supplements because, this business of taking vitamin A can be toxic to your body, too much vitamin D. It's a, how did he word it? It's a Goldilocks, mindset. And the reality is you don't need to take all that. You can get it from food. Well, some of that's true and some of that's not true. And so I had to have this conversation. I said, well, look, if you have a campfire and you have a barn on fire, and you have a building on fire, what is the major difference in putting out each one of those fires? And it's the technique, right? You might use water to put out the campfire, and it might be a bucket of water, right? But have you ever squirted water on a campfire? Were you able to put it out? No. So if you take a water pistol to a forest fire, you're going to burn up your plastic water gun and you potentially inflame and burn something else up, yourself included, depending on how close you get, right? So the dose is important. And so in some respects, we should be able to get what we need from our food. I totally believe that. It just doesn't happen in today's society, especially when you've got millions of dollars of marketing pushing you to eat garbage, junk food, make-believe food, and we always know what that leads to, right? Make-believe food leads to?
Make-believe health.
Make-believe health. So we've got to start recognizing that, so there's, again, I got to be re-educated to sometimes foods versus junk foods versus all-the-time food staples that truly drive health and function into our body. And so we also then have to appreciate that. Would you agree, or do you think, in your opinion, that we are under more stress today than we may have been maybe in years past?
Oh yeah, 100% for sure.
And I think so. I was listening to something from Marcus Aurelius back in his days, and he said that he was dealing with a 15-year pandemic, political strife and turmoil, financial woes and concerns, and I was thinking to myself, oh no, so we all hoped that COVID, SARS virus issues were just a thing, a little blip on our radar, and lo and behold, this might well be longer than that. Here we are, coming into the end of, I think we're in 2021. It seems like a blur. Things are going so fast. And technology has definitely plugged us in a way that is different stress-wise. For the average, American living in this culture, just from the 1980s to 90s, my parents used to let me ride bikes with no supervision, and I had no cell phone. I had no pager. If I found a quarter on the ground, I might be able to call home if I could find a quarter on the ground. You know what I mean? But, do you remember?
Oh, I remember, yeah.
And now parents flip their lid if their kids don't take their phone with them, and heaven forbid we let them, ride their bike to the next neighborhood and be kids, because we're concerned. So there's always these stresses, and stress is one of the fastest way to turn off your T regulator cells, your thymic activity, your bone marrow production of healthy immune function. And so now you're susceptible, and kids are playing more video games than normal, so they're not outside getting these vitamins, from the sun and activating vitamin D, for example. And they don't eat really that healthy. I've seen, we feed them junk food all the time. We see this continually driving neurodegeneration disorders, inflammation of the brain, and it seems like we have seasonal flus and colds and stuff that have always transpired. So there's obviously these fires that are brewing, and at some point we've got to come in with a dose heavy enough to put out the campfire, or a dose heavy enough to put out the building or the barn. We have to recognize what kind of fire are we fighting right now, and are we willing as parents, as caregivers, to dose accordingly? What's the favorite multivitamin campaign? One a day will do you. A multivitamin, one a day. Well, I'm sorry, it's not enough dose. It is taking a water pistol to a forest fire. Plus, it's synthetic. Plus, we know 97.5% of every supplement sold on the market today is either not safe or not effective. Let me say that again. 97.5% is either not safe or not effective, meaning it's not going to do what they say it'll do. So it gives you this false sense of security. So if you aren't vetting out your companies that you want to believe in and trust in to get you from point A to point B from your health perspective, you need somebody to kind of guide that ship. That's what we also do at our office, is we are teaching people to recognize fake nutrients in supplements called good for you. We don't want to market, good for you and then give you something that isn't going to get it done. And so I personally vet out all these companies, and I study with these guys, and I go see a lot of their plants and see how they process stuff and see where it actually comes from. I mean, Standard Process is probably one of the world leaders in beet production. I mean, you've never seen beets, Gardy, so beautiful. Smelled beets so amazing. You never would have put so many good adjectives of positivity toward the beet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you see the truck loaded with beets the size, bigger than your fist, and you go, good gravy. I've never seen things so large.
They're from the promised land.
That's right. These are the milk and honey beets, right? And they taste different. People go, oh, beets are bitter. They taste terrible. Well, these didn't. You could literally just start scraping some of the dirt off of it, get to some of the the cleaner part, and eat it, and it is delightful. And it's like Pop Rocks in your mouth. It's a party in your mouth. And then you go, but what is a beet good for, other than me being afraid of it? And you go, oh well, it upregulates liver function, so it helps detoxify. It helps upregulate bowel function so that you can digest. I almost said digestify, so you can digest your food better, and you can then, know that you're cleansing out your 1,600 pathway manufacturing facility, your liver. The liver's the giver, guys, so you always got to take care of it. And this is another part of a healthy T regulator program, is to upregulate liver function. And I just get excited because it comes back down to simple. Let's keep it simple, guys, because when you keep it simple and you don't get caught up in the crazy, you won't get beat by the waves of confusion. You'll ride the waves, and the waves of confusion will be under your feet, and you'll see clearly riding the waves towards your promised land, which is hopefully vibrancy is what you're shooting for, or longevity, vitality, the vim, vigor, and vip that I love to speak so highly of. And all the days of your life, fully functional in spirit, mind, and body. You've got to have a plan, and you don't want to just leave your health in the woes of somebody's plan, because there's marketing dollars that are driving you towards bad health and you don't even know it. And we want you to recognize it. We want you to see it. We want you to take the bull by the horns, and we want you to start seeing that you have tools in your tool bag. And Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we have vetted out products and programs and ideas to help you manufacture a better new idea towards a better, brighter tomorrow. Doesn't that sound good?
That sounds great. So there's something that I saw whenever you were talking about, kids playing video games, not outside, and how things used to be different. I saw this in an article, and it's pretty off topic, but in China they're limiting teenagers, 14 under 18 years old, the amount of times that they can play video games. Like the government is. And now on one hand, I was like, oh, that's probably a good thing that the parents should be doing, and I'm guilty of it too with tablets and anything else. But I was just like, it's crazy that their government came in and does that.
And it's interesting. Is that a government job? No, I really don't think so. And so for me, as much as I can see where the argument is being made for that, I think when we adopt those practices of letting other people dictate how we make choice, then I think we set ourselves up for very similar things about going on today. We're giving up the ability to think. And the hardest thing to do in life is to think for yourself. Think. You remember Dr. Seuss's book, Oh, the Things You Can Think, if you just learn to think. He just has these rhymes about the power of thinking and the places you'll go, the books you'll read, the people you associate with, the conversations you can have through thinking power, thinking. And very few people think for themselves, and they just hear what other people tell them, and they parrot that back. And I think that I have to be careful and never take for granted that people aren't just listening to my words and just doing what I tell them because I tell them to do it. I don't want that. One, that's a lot of responsibility on me, but I'm comfortable with it because now, when I was first in practice, these were ideas, and I was riding on the coattails of my mentors, standing on the shoulders of my mentor giants that had seen 30, 35, and 40,000 case files and trusted their knowledge, and did it resonate? And the best wisdom that I've ever been given was a guy named Dr. Romick. He said that, when you're in school, Aaron, going through all those textbooks, pray that God show you the truth. Help so that you can extrapolate the truth out of those books. When the teacher gives a lecture, pray that the Lord reveal to you the truth, so that you can always be searching and seeking the truth, so that you can bring that truth to light for yourself and make it as clear as crystal, so that beyond a shadow of a doubt what you're saying is true. And then never teach somebody something that you can't explain well. Right? And of course, we know if we can explain it well, we understand it well. If we understand it well, we know we can start seeing patterns of truth come out in other people's lives. And I think that, that's why I say that all life starts and stops at the cellular level, and nutrition is the fundamental backbone to drive it forward. It's a truth. It's a like gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared to the ground, right? We're all getting pulled down at that rate. And nutrition is a law, a principled law that you and I are forced to follow. Now we can put the wrong nutrition in and we can hit the ground a lot harder, right? Mm-hmm. We can put the right nutrition in and we can seem to be like a gazelle, a jackal that, moves more swiftly on the terrains of life. And especially if there's even pitfalls, we can seemingly rebound from those little glitches that we get ourselves into and navigate the arena. And it comes down to, what are you doing every day, lifestyle-wise, to activate your tissues to perform well at an immunological level? And we've got programs and protocols. I can just give laundry list of products like Immuplex, amazing blood builder that we use in the office that stimulates the entire immune alliance. So most people think they have an immune system. They don't realize they have a spleen, a lymph tissue system, the digestive system, the cardiovascular system, that all the bone marrow are all a part of your immune system. So we really don't have an immune system. We have an alliance. An immune alliance. Doesn't that sound better than just a system?
It does.
I want to have a fighting, a vibrant immune alliance at my back.
Like the Avengers.
Like the Avengers. I want the Incredible Hulk on my team. Mm-hmm. I want Iron Man on my team, by far my favorite. I want, Thor, swinging his little hammer around and doing amazing things, and then throwing it at the shield of Captain America and creating some sort of weird, we
need a barrier. Yeah, some kind of force field.
Force field thingy. And golly, Immuplex, that's your go-to. We can leverage mushrooms in the form of Epiimmune, a great antimicrobial, antiviral type support product for your endocrine system. We were kind of talking about thyroid a little while ago. You can literally help the immune system deal with viruses in the endocrine system, your pituitary, hypothalamus, thyroid, adrenal, gonadal axis, just using these shiitake and Ganoderma type mushrooms. Powerful, powerful tools that we can leverage and use. And we underutilize them, because, ooh, gross, nobody wants to eat a mushroom. Well, don't worry, we have it in a capsule, and you can just take it. Some of these weird exotic things your body needs. And I find a lot of times the immune system might be sluggish because it's never been redeveloped. It's never been conditioned. If you just compete, your body gets worn out. You've got to rebuild it. You've got to, recondition it so that it performs at that peak performance level. You've got to rest it. You've got to hydrate it. You got to regenerate it, right? Mm-hmm. You got to take some of that time. We know that if you're only in the war, you're going to get weary. You're going to get worn out, and then that's what leaves you susceptible. I had a guy come in yesterday. He was at a jiu-jitsu tournament, and he goes, "Man, I felt like I would have won. I just the guy that I went up against had to buy the ring before me, and jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. I mean, 4 minutes, that'll wear your butt out."
Yeah.
So he went from one straight into another, where in some respects, maybe he was more warmed up and ready. But in some respects, depending on how hard it was for him to get through that tier to the next tier, he could have been drained.
Could have burned out his arms, all kinds of things. There, you have a dump of adrenaline and all different things. Yeah,
no question. So so then you got this guy coming in fresh, who just through rest and regeneration, he's more ready for the event.
Yeah.
Even though the guy, he's at his peak performance, should be ready to do it again, except he's fatigued. Right. So that's a conditioning thing, and so just because you're always performance ready doesn't mean that you can maintain that forever. You've got to go in and recondition these immune cells and get this immune alliance firing and functioning like it's supposed to. So we create these programs. We can deal with calcium, magnesium issues. We can deal with the vitamin C issues. We can come in and support the GI tract and make sure that the mucous membranes and the immunity of your GI tract is intact, so that one of your first lines of defense is your GI tract. I mean, we are a tube from our mouth to our hind end. So if an ant crawled in your mouth and went out your hind end, he never technically went inside your body. I think that is a phenomenal concept to grasp hold of. And so if it penetrates across the membrane walls, then it's in your body, and it can potentially be useful if it's an amino acid or a nutrient that our body can, you leverage. But it could also be a poison or a toxin or a pathogen that now becomes a foreign alien, an invader, if you will, that might be wreaking havoc inside of your body. And if you get enough aliens and enough, wrecking balls inside of your tissues, then now you can start developing symptom patterns. These symptom patterns, they start as weeds, Gardy. They start simple, hard to recognize. Man, why'd that headache come on? Or why'd that skin rash pop up? Or why is my eyes blurry? Or why do I have the bags under my eyes? Or why do I feel like a little bit of tenderness in my throat? Mm-hmm. You ask the why question because it doesn't have a name yet. But then as time goes and you don't address these problems, they turn into a disease. They turn into something that is recognizable, and it's more of like an oak tree. Oh, I know that's an oak tree. Well, I also know that oak is hard and difficult to work with, and so you could have some sort of advanced disease process that turns into even more severe things like cancer or autoimmunity, and it just progresses down to something more inflammatory. It goes from the campfire to the barn, to the building. And we try to use campfire approaches on a building level fire, and it just isn't enough. And I think that's a reality, bitter pill that we have to be okay with swallowing, because if you find yourself in a conundrum where you are dealing with a building level fire, you've got to break out of the mindset that a campfire approach of therapy is going to regulate it. And because if you can, you will manage that building fire strategically, where instead of the building coming collapsing down, you will minimize the damage. I have a patient, he just went through chemo He had advanced leukemia disorder that was causing anemias. So, for example, this guy, he was having an anemic problem. And every time, he also would get this random weird cough. And we could never figure it out. Like, we were supporting the anemia. We were supporting the cough to the best of our ability. But it turned out to be a blood cancer that every time he drank alcohol, it would activate the cough. Classic symptom of this type of leukemia he had. And it also, the anemia was coming from the leukemia cancer that was building in his chest cavity. And we built a whole program. I used to believe a long time ago when I didn't understand how powerful nutrition was. I mean, even practicing, you don't know how powerful it is until you walk with enough people, right? When you're with enough people and you see miracles happen, and we see at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, miracles happen every day. I found, a place where no longer do I think I'm just an adjunctive B-team player when it comes to cancer. We are an absolute a bulldog when it comes to cancer, support. I don't care if you're on chemo and radiation. I build a program with that in mind, because I know how to modulate your body in such a way to support you going through the death gauntlet of going through poisoning your body with chemo and radiation. And this guy went through this process on our program, and he looks amazing. It's crazy. He's cancer-free. He looks amazing. And now we're building the post-recovery program. We built the program while he was in it, and he said it's expensive, and it was a lot of work. But he also will tell you that his doctors would say, I don't know how you made it through without this type of shot and this type of drug and this add-on that we have to add to every one of our other patients. He goes, I couldn't believe to see the transitions that other people that were on the same routine schedule that he was on, that they literally were aging at 10 times the rate that he was. So is there a cost for what he did? Of course. But did we minimize the damage? Did the building, if you will, come crumbling down? No. He didn't die. Praise God. Did the building have, millions of dollars of damages? No, because we were in the game, in the trench with him, making sure that his body was repairing and working synergistically with the poison that he was taking in order to get rid of the cancer. So he had to bring a pretty big, water pistol to his building level fire, right? Frequency-wise. But he didn't just let the poison do the work. He surrounded adjunctively and supportively nutrition as a foundation, Gardy, a nutritional foundation to make sure that building was minimized. We protected the body's systems and dealt with the burden, and now his recovery is astronomical. And he's a miracle according to the doctors. They're scratching their head, but they don't really ask too many questions because they got protocols to follow. And this guy goes, man, it's still mind-boggling, and it's still hard for me to know. Well, should I keep doing your program? Well, of course, because it's one of these things that he can see it, but then he's got so-and-so telling him this and so-and-so telling him this, and then he's got me telling him this. And so it's, again, the hardest thing to do in life is to what?
Think for yourself.
Think for yourself. And so this guy's taking in data and information, praying, and I've taught him this, to pray for the truth of it all and to find the truth that he believes God is showing him. And my job is not to convince him of the truth. Because a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. I am an adjunctive, in the trench warrior with you, shoulder to shoulder, battling with you in your care plans. That's what I teach, my clinicians to do at my office, so that we are together working with patients. We are not, dictatoring them into programs. I had a gal come in yesterday, and she's got tooth problems, and they're they're just heavily warning her of the neglect, right? Well, it's not neglect whenever you can't go get dental hygiene care because COVID shut the world down, right? You have to find a sidestep. You've got to find a workaround. And at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, that's what we give you is workarounds. And literally yesterday, I said, look, I know they're telling you that if you don't get that root canal tomorrow, you're going to, have, permanent damages. I said, well, but understand that a root canal is a permanent damage. I mean, they're ripping out the nerve, the artery, and the vein supply right then and there. And so I would rather you go get this test done. Let's see the viability of the tooth and see how raging is the fire. Is it a campfire issue? Is it a barn issue? Or is it a 10-story building fire? What are we dealing with?
Mm-hmm.
And so after talking with her, I also built her a hygiene care program. And I was showing her what she could do with, the chaparral, one of my favorite herbs, and echinacea, and golden seal, and elderberry, and looking at the different tools that she has access to in order to remodel and upregulate these T-regulating cells in the body so that her immune system is more ready for the fight. And I was like, this is pretty cool, girl. And I said, and now we're not going to just rely on the herbs. We're also going to bring in this type of toothbrush. I use Sonicare toothbrush or an Oral-B, something that has that sonic kind of wave potential, something more than just brushing, right? I want to disturb the ant piles of bacteria that are lurking in her teeth. I want her to use and leverage hydrogen peroxide and baking soda to drive oxygen deep into the tissues so that she knows how to, knows that she's killing bacteria. She's got to go in aggressively overhaul. Because until she does the test to find out what her fire level is, we're going to treat it because the doctors are telling her she's got to have a root canal. Well, if you don't want to have a root canal, you're going to have to do the program aggressively and pretend that you have a 10-story building level fire, and these are the tools you got to do. We're going to leverage water pick. We're going to use floss. We're going to use techniques and tools to make sure that we go in and build a appropriate teeth hygiene program. And guys, people don't think about Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center when it comes to the teeth, but we know teeth. We understand the body because, again, what part of the watch tells time, Gardy?
It's all of it.
All of it. So are your teeth a part of all of it?
It is.
Dang right it is. And I get excited because it doesn't matter the disorder. It doesn't matter the 10-story building, the barn, or the campfire level issues that you're dealing with. We have tools. We have answers. We have guidance. We have things to help you think through the process of healthcare for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, for your friends, so that you can face the scary or face the mundane with ease and grace and know that you're doing everything you can do in the natural to support a healthy, functioning, vibrant system to go onward, upward, goodward, and Godward all the days of your life. Isn't that good?
It is. A couple things. Whenever you started talking about root canals and teeth, I started to feel my teeth. Just like you're like ripping the roots and the nerves out. I was like, oh, my teeth. Okay, I can feel that. And the other thing, you mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and you talk about the centenarians, the people who lived to be 100 years of age, and they didn't have that dental work done. But you were saying that some of them had all their teeth, and some of them had their teeth removed. Either way, they didn't have the fillings and all this stuff put into their teeth, which I thought was interesting because in the times that you've mentioned it, I didn't catch that part.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to grasp hold of is they either had no issues with their teeth, complete virgin teeth, or they had no teeth, which means they still had no issues technically with their teeth because they didn't have any teeth.
Remove the issue.
They removed the issues. Now, they have other challenges, but whenever you have a raging inferno of infection in your body, in your teeth specifically, and it's masked. You don't see it until it pusses up. You don't see it until the pain shows up. You don't see it until the gums pockets go to a 9. You know?
Right.
You don't see it until it's too late. It's one of those ant piles that just pops up out of nowhere, or a mushroom farm in your front yard that pops up out of nowhere, and you go, what? Where did that come from?
Right.
And how did that happen so fast? It's the case of the suddenlies. And so some of these infections have been brewing for years and years and years. And, man, it manifests symptomatically overnight, but it was brewing for years. And so it's harder to fix those 8-story fires, but it's not impossible. And it only takes a little bit of heavy work on your point for a little bit of time in order to manage and get that thing under control. And I just want people to appreciate, we can have a little bit of inconvenience from the storms of life disrupt our work and disrupt our homes and disrupt life around us, our families and friends, and we have to stand in the gap with them and pray together or serve and work together to kind of get foundation and traction back in life. But it's oftentimes a marginal little blip on the radar, and then you'll have this amazing story on the flip side if you have the truth, if you have the education to go onward, upward, good, and Goddard, and find these new strategies. Just relying on the current medical approaches is not the best strategy. That's putting all your eggs in one basket. And there's so many things that you still can do in order to get traction and move things onward for you, for your family, for your children, your next generation. So because your children are seeing everything you do, and the whole thing with people coming down with this virus, the SARS virus, and COVID being the thing, there's another component inside of why COVID has such a dramatic effect on people. Well, what happens when you take a magnifying glass and you shine and you get it real close, and you kind of get that perfect vision where you can get that ant to magnify? He got bigger, right? When you magnify something and you start talking about how evil it is and how terrible it is and how this, that, and the other it is and how it's killing people, the fear of it now goes up. We have a new C word. The old C word was what? Cancer. You hear the word cancer and you shiver in your bones, right? And from fear. Now you come down with COVID and you shiver in your bones because it's a death sentence of sorts. But that's not the truth. Like, most people recover. Most people have gotten it and don't even know they ever had it. But there are there's some that, and it's those sometimes in our orbits that have come down with this condition, and they were either they had underlying pre-existing conditions, or they were mismanaged, or something happened that they didn't get into the fire treatment early enough, fast enough, or with the right therapy. And we are, it's whenever people came down with the flu in the past or the swine flu in the past, people died. People used to die from the flu. But the thing is a lot of people also survived. It was just a 2, 3, 4 day inconvenience. And if we can get in there and we can be aggressive in immune modulation, and you can have somebody coaching you through the fear, then that fear of the unknown, false evidence appearing real, goes away, and now you don't have that as a burden to bear also. I know this is these days a controversial subject matter, but man, when you've treated as many people that have had different types of conditions, all types of conditions, and you've gone and you've worked them through process, and you didn't treat the condition, you supported the body, then you see the conditions go away and melt away and they succeed. You go, wow, that is interesting. And then and for me, it's interesting in the form of it's a miracle, right? And I see these miracles and it builds my confidence, and it builds my my own personal story that I am now leaning not on my mentors and my giant in the past that have helped me get to this place. I'm walking with them and contributing to the stories
as it's happening
happening right now. And it's like God knew, I needed to go through that success and that failure and to be challenged by that circumstance, personally. And because I've had some stuff happen, I've had rashes come up that 35-year veteran in the field of dermatology couldn't even tell me what it was. Just said, I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. And that was my treatment. Yeah. I got nothing for you. I can put you on some steroids. I can do this, and I'm like, okay, thanks for nothing. And out the door I went, right? But I still had to pay the bill, and it was expensive. And yet my treatment plan was support the lymphatics, take care of the GI tract, make sure it's flowing and moving, making sure that things are, progressing forward, evaluating the process every day. Yeah, I see the dang thing spread, and yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, I don't like it. Yeah, I wish I had an answer for it. Yeah, still to this day, I have my theories on what it was. But at the end of the day, it was self-limiting. Why? Because I was supporting my body's natural T-regulating, upregulating cells in order to go fight the good fight. And I didn't just treat it like a campfire whenever it didn't go away in a week, when it didn't go away in 2 weeks, when it stuck with me for 40 days. And I was like, man, I mean, because I don't know. Like, my diet was darn perfect, and it came on so aggressively, and it acted like poison ivy. It looked like poison ivy. It looked like contact dermatitis, acted like contact dermatitis. It looked like a staph infection, acted like a staph infection. It went through all these little weird phases, right? And it was the fear of the unknown for me. I had to walk that path by myself. Nobody had an answer for me. But I knew I had principled practice that had done so many good things for other people, and that I applied those practices: Epsom salt baths, oatmeal baths. I, did the supplements. I took, and did hot cold therapies. I did things to stimulate that tissue, bringing blood into the area, maximizing lymphatic flow. And lo and behold, it changed regularly, so much so that I was like comfortable with those changes, and I navigated the change and got through the process. And I believe today that my body's stronger for it. But I'm also appreciative of the fact that, the body is degenerating. It is still going to struggle with stuff. I mean, just because I do all this stuff, no one gets out of here alive, so one of my mentor, Dr. Rick, says. And I hate it. He's right, though. Yeah. No one gets out of here alive. And so here we go. How am I going to maximize my time? And I'm going to manage the fear. And I'm going to work with people that have results and fruit on the tree. And I'm going to help, build my immunological dream team, psychologically, biochemically, physically, and lifestyle-wise. All these different practices, Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, comes alongside you. We stand in the gap with you, and we teach you how to be comfortable wherever you are in the process of taking your health seriously, number one, and taking your health by the horns and maximizing change, lifestyle changes that you can make, and then trusting God with the rest. There's both of those angles, what you can control and what you can't, and being okay on both parts of the path, and then surrounding myself and surrounding our patients with love and support to help them navigate the challenge.
If I get sick and whenever I don't feel well, or if I have a rash come up or something like that, I want the solution. How has this worked before, right? And sometimes I don't care necessarily how it works, as long as it does work and there's the proof and all of that. So I've spoken to, people from HCA, the hospitals, UTMB, emergency rooms, clinics, and the one thing that they've told me since, speaking of COVID earlier, is that we've learned so much in this time. There are treatments now. There's things you can do early. There's regimens,
things you can do
protocols
that
you can do that we didn't have then, and there's a new strain, and it seems to be, tougher on some people who haven't had it before, don't currently have antibodies or some other things like that. But there's so much more that we know now than we did, March of 2020.
Yeah, but even in that, the whatever new comes down, and I'm just going to pull a word out of the Bible. Nothing new under the sun. I mean, right. I truly don't think it's necessarily new or some fluke thing. I think this is just something different that our body is having to learn. It's like, if your body is a hard drive and the bugs are software, you're getting a software download. And unfortunately, the software download brought with it some bugs. I mean, some issues in the hard drive ain't running as good with this particular download. But at the end of the day, one of my great mentors, Dr. Stewart, said, he goes, I'd rather you get the bug, roll through it, and move on from it stronger, because you supported yourself through it. And this is what I see too often is when I get, my hands with patients, if they will just do some of the protocols and therapies, that the hot cold treatments that we do, the supplemental interventions that we do, we find that, people do fine going through the process of downloading these bugs. Whether it's COVID or whether it's another virus. There's trillions of viruses. This isn't like viral therapy isn't new. You understand? The body has been dealing with viruses for a long time, and so this is just but again, if you amplify and you magnify its problem, that it is the problem, that it is as equivalently dangerous as cancer, and you bring the element of psychological fear and derangement into our thinking pattern, it skews our thinking. Well, what I tell you in the beginning, the hardest thing to do is to think. And when you've got 90% of people afraid of it, and we're carrying that energy around the globe of fear, false evidence appearing real. That's what fear is. Guess what? It's very difficult for you to be the salmon swimming upstream thinking differently than the masses. It's very different to, not fall into the trap of sheeple thinking and just go with the flow. You've got to be okay challenging the status quo, that you've made it as old as you are on the planet, and you've made it this far.
Barely.
Yeah, maybe.
Barely.
Some folks
Right,
barely. Yeah. But to your point, barely some of us. But you still made it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I just am excited about, because the body wants to heal. The body wants to perform at a eloquent level, and it will if you give it the parameters. So at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, I just want to remind you that tonight we have a wonderful program in store for you, 6:30 p.m. at Living Well. Give us a call at 281-554-8600. We'll be talking about thyroid health and the diesel engine and how you can get your diesel to truck across the country, the longevity haul, so that you feel good, live good, and perform good all the days of your life. And just know that every Tuesday from 9 to 10, we are here with KHEA, and we are working education into your day, your life, and we do it live. And we also have our podcast. So just Google us on all your social media platforms. Type us in there and find us. Subscribe, share this information with your friends, family, and loved ones, because someone in your orbit will benefit. There is information every week that we're talking about. If you have questions and if you want to understand more about why your body's breaking down and what you can do to turn your health on and get it to suppress the acceleration of aging on you, we've got a tool and an answer for you at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center. So visit us at justlivewell.com, be a patient at our clinic, and come see our wonderful clinicians and get the care and service you need from our wonderful, lovely staff. God bless you guys, and have a lovely afternoon.
This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM.